Welcome to Castle Hill. This will be a beautiful day. This will be. This will be a day of peace. This will be. This will be a day for others. This will be. Listen for a word from God from the Old Testament, from the second book of Kings. Then Elisha picked up Elijah's cloak that had fallen from him and went back and stood on the bank of the Jordan. He struck the water with Elijah's cloak and said, "Where is the Lord, the God of Elijah?" Then he struck the water again, and it divided, and he walked over to the other side. The 50 prophets from Jericho saw him and said, "The power of Elijah is on Elisha." They went to meet him, bowed down before him and said, "There are 50 of us here, all strong men. Let us go and look for your master. Maybe the Spirit of the Lord has carried him away and left him on some mountain or in some valley." "No," Elisha answered, "you must not go." Let's take a moment to reflect. We dare our prayers, O God, to be more than words and become the hope of the world. May this be a day of prayer. On the paths we walk today, on which we never hoped or expected to be, may we find your moment that holds us between the words and silences, between the hurts and joys. May we know that moment as a promise, waiting till we need it, and know the embrace that it is, surrounding us and all we know. So be it. You may have noticed that on the BBC television, Newswatch came back to examine exactly why or how the coronavirus had been treated by the BBC over the past 5 months. There were lots of criticisms from people who had gone on Facebook and on Twitter. If you listen to our news commentators just now, there are lots of criticisms, much haranguing of not only politicians but other experts who are dealing with the COVID-19 situation. At a time when we've had parties of 300 in Scotland, when the R number is rising, when guidelines are being sidelined, is this really the right way we should be going? How should we be thinking of this at this time as a church? Without social media, Elisha the prophet we remember this week and his compatriots were the enduring, challenging, corrective voice behind the moral choices of both Judaism in their day and Christianity in ours. The core of our message, when our faith speaks best and is at its most enduring and its most relevant, is when it follows the tradition of Elisha, Elijah, Isaiah, Jeremiah, Hosea, and the prophets. When the faith challenges that which becomes the norm in society. When God's people refuse to take for granted that society, especially when it loses contact with its moral foundations, making the poor poorer, creation just another economic resource, reducing our humanity in so many different ways. There's something we need to get right about prophecy, though, and it's very clear in the Old Testament. It has no interest in predicting the future. Prophets aren't diviners or soothsayers. faith has little time for them. Indeed, the prophets hope they've got the future wrong. Their claim is, if you keep going the way you're going, society will fail. When you lose the truth, you lose trust. And when you lose trust, the fabric frays. But the core and essential point of a prophetic voice is that the future is not prescripted. It is an invitation to make different choices. The prophet tells the truth of what will happen if we don't shift our balance of choices. Elisha and his colleagues do not predict, they warn. Heed the danger. There's a book called The Wisdom of Crowds. The author tells the story of the American naturalist William Beebe, who found a group of blind army ants moving in a circle. They went round and round for 2 days in the same circle until most of them dropped dead. Because apparently when a group of army ants gets separated from its colony, there is only one simple rule they obey: follow the ant in front of you. But if the ant in front of you is lost, you are too. The author's point was that we need dissenting voices to stand apart, to question where the group is going, what the conventional wisdom is. Resisting what is fashionable and populist is the task of the prophet. And what they question, what they are always calling to account, is our way of living together. It's about the kind of relationship we have with each other. It's always about relationships. If you were unfaithful to God, then it was certain you would be unfaithful to your neighbours. If society can't be faithful to that which provides its values and its compassion, then it would never be faithful to its last and its least. The strength of any community, of any congregation, of any society, of any nation is not its power, its military, its demographics, but its choice of values. If you keep faith to your foundational morality, in our case the narrative of God, then you will keep faith to each other. While none of that comes particularly from the little snippet of the story of Elisha, perhaps one part is fundamental: the act of passing on the mantle. This rich foundation in the Bible is not lost. It is very vocal still, and perhaps we are at our most relevant and challenging when we speak collectively with that prophetic voice. This is where we stand apart and have a dissenting voice, when we see the connection at odds between our choice of values and the way we shape society. It's what defines how we live. Our voice is not always spoken. Often it is louder when it is lived out. We model how our foundational ethic is connected to how we live. We become that which keeps connecting us to that different way of living. We live continually challenging our own ethic. We shape a faith that constantly challenges us, calls into question what we habitually do as a group and as a person. It's the kind of faith we can have, being comfortable with questions, familiar with challenges, accustomed to resetting conventions. It doesn't mean that these conventions are wrong, but it focuses them to reimagine who we are in the 21st century. And that, according to Richard Rohr, the writer, is what leads us to be able to choose a different future. The prophets say the future is not inevitable. It is always contingent on our cooperation, our choices, our actions. Nothing is fixed. Living in the prophetic imagination is the gift of our church to our communities, to our country. And more than just reimagining it, modelling it in this community, living in that way towards each other, is the way that I believe we can get through this long drawn out period of COVID-19 and come through out the other end together with hope. Let's take a moment to reflect. In the depths of love, we find ultimate meaning, compassion, grace, and forgiveness. And in all love, we find you, God, at the centre, holding us, caring us, being with us. In return, may we do the same for all of humanity. Live in peace. Know God's comfort and God's hope this week in all you do. Share encouragement. Stay safe and keep well. Thank you.